you created.
I'll let you know when we're live. Takes
Okay.
a couple minutes.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, we're calling the meeting to order, the Historic Preservation Commission. Roll call. Les Barber. Here. Chris Mullen,
Here.
John Sampen here. And Will is maybe watching from afar. And Christina Tracy could not be here. So we do have a quorum.
Yes. I just want to introduce Martha Wilkie, our new
Thank you.
community development administrator. She is observing the meeting in case I need help at meetings and I'm not able to attend. And of course, learning how meetings work and the different facets of the planning department. So I appreciate her attendance. So I just wanted you to introduce.
Great. Welcome.
Sure.
We need help too. So we'll count on you. Excellent. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? I would so move.
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? I think not. Les wrote them. So everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, so we'll get through as much as we can today. Going on to item number 3, the local designation discussion. As far as the county courthouse goes, I have no information on that. Heather, have you? Heard
Well,
any-
yes and no. I did talk to our city attorney yesterday, and he said, unfortunately, he hasn't heard anything. He touches base every so often. It's just that prosecutor's office often takes months to, they have a full plate. And so, he said probably months you'll hear back from them. Unfortunately, we have a couple other issues we are waiting responses for, not related to this. So
Who are we waiting?
the
to-
county prosecutor's office
Okay.
to approve that.
And this is in regards to our proposal to recognize the courthouse as a historic building. It would just be it would be an official recognition, but it would not be, since it's a county building, we're not going to restrict them to any kind of rules of the HPC. So we're on hold for that.
For the county buildings, well, and state building or city buildings, I guess, or university buildings, do we still want to inventory them the same way that we would other buildings?
Good question.
I would think so.
Yeah. Just to have the information on hand, I
Yeah.
guess, would be.
I think it's a good idea. Would you suggest we do that in advance of their approval?
I'm not sure if it matters if we want to, I mean, we could do it, concurrently while they're reviewing the memos or.
Okay, well, that'll be a
Since,
further discussion.
right.
Okay. The meeting with President Rogers, Rodney Rogers, Bowling Green State University. We've moved forward with a date that will be November 1st. Will and I will be meeting with him. I did invite the mayor as well on October 13th. I've heard nothing back from the mayor, so I will try to reach out. I don't know what his plans are, so I will find out. We will be going anyway, and we certainly would welcome the mayor to join us on that.
I have not heard anything, but I did forward you an article about the administration building
Thank you.
being demolished. And
Right.
then, to give you an idea of, they do have plans to really bring back that historic character
Right.
where it was originally built. So I thought that would be of interest of you all to read that article.
It was great. Thank you for that. And I know that President Rogers is very interested in working with this city in considering ways to beautify that entrance from the city into the university. So we'll see how that goes. Les, you had put together a kind of a suggestion of maybe what we might talk about. I don't know that we need to go over that today.
Well, maybe just one little additional thought about one of them. The first idea I think is self-explanatory, that we would like them to do something similar to what we asked the county commissioners to do with their building, which is to, through maybe a memorandum of understanding, agree to list their,
The
key
buildings
legacy buildings, as
such
they
as
call them.
the university building, the Mosley, Williams, Hannah, and Chat. So I think that's what
And
you-
so, but possibly the library. The library is
what is it? What is the date of the library?
30s, I think.
Okay, so
Not sure exactly, 30s or 40s.
okay.
But the second thing has to do with Court Street, and maybe the best strategy, John, would just be to ask them whether they can envision any ways in which they could help us with our interest in having that stretch of street from the university down to Main Street be part of a historic district of some kind. Yet to be determined. How could they help us with that? It might be
Financially,
presumptuous of us to suggest that they buy houses and renovate them, but if invite them to say what,
perhaps.
that's it. That's just thinking that maybe that's the way to approach that.
Well, and just to, I think I mentioned before that we have been in talks with the university about Court Street. So just want to make sure you knew that we have been
Yeah.
talking about it, and including the county, of course, and any other stakeholders on Court Street, just some visioning processes and what those could look like.
And I know the university has been buying up property, at least along Worcester, and perhaps that would be of interest to them as well. The meeting is to be with also the Vice President of Planning and Construction, April Smucker. I don't know her.
That's who we meet with about.
You have been meeting with her already?
Yes, about Court Street and other
Okay.
things. Yep.
So
Mhm.
she will be there for that meeting as well.
Great. Good.
I could read your memo. What do you think?
I don't think it's
Okay.
necessary. I mean, those are the two,
The two
essentially, those are the two
items,
things
right.
that we propose to the mayor as agenda items.
Good. Okay, thank you. The acceptance of our Boomtown donation.
Before you do that, what about the city buildings? Anything new about them?
You're talking about the
Facade of the old
police,
post office.
post office, the police station, and the Anita Hall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing.
I know you sent an email
To
to the mayor, I
the
believe, didn't
mayor.
you?
I've heard nothing back.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe I need to have a meeting with the mayor to go over some of those things. One thing that I did discover in looking at our maps, thank you for those big maps. And I did a little studying of Main Street, and the police department building is included in that Main Street
Mhm.
of the National Register.
Mhm.
So if we would decide to blend Boomtown and Main Street together, that would already be recognized. Are we suggesting a separate recognition for that building beyond?
Well, that's just the National Register. I mean, ours is a different,
But it
process.
would be included in the overlay district
I see
at
what
this
you mean.
point.
Well, that's a long way ahead of us, whether,
Yeah, Yeah.
I would argue we would hope that the city would be willing to move forward on that fairly soon, because that would be a kind of leadership
uh-huh.
opportunity for the city to take. It would sort of help us in our larger endeavors. And if the other develops, there's no problem. It would just be folded into a larger district,
Okay,
I think.
It would be anyway, but we may want to have some special recognition for that particular building.
And it might be we want a different title for those buildings.
Yeah.
Rather than just a property in X
Right.
historic district.
And some of these questions we might be able to ask if the mayor returns.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Okay, the donation, has that been deposited into some account?
I have not heard anything yet. Do you know if it was officially sent?
No.
Okay, all right.
I heard from Ellen Dalton that she was,
Okay.
would make that happen. And that
Okay.
was a month ago, but
Okay,
I've heard nothing else.
okay.
Okay,
Just to clarify in my own mind, this donation will be made to a fund in the city and will not really have anything to do with the foundation that Will has been working on and which we might or might not
Yeah,
formally
I mean,
approve soon.
it could go into that, but at this point, it's not designed for the
At the
foundation.
moment, it's
Right.
going into a city's.
Yes, we have a
account,
commissions account
Yeah.
within planning department that we
which
would
is
keep it
fine. I'm
in.
not
Mhm.
saying there's anything wrong with it. I was just wanted to clarify in my own mind that
Sure,
And this
at
is,
least at this point, it's a separate.
Yes.
Martha, this is a small amount of, I think, $1,200, something like that, that was left over from the Boomtown organization in the late 1980s. And Ellen Dalton has been the caretaker of that account for quite a few years, and she was ready to pass it on, and we appreciate that. Okay, well, let's move forward. Number 4, our strategic planning of historic districts and buildings. Chris has prepared for us a new map. Is this a good moment to examine that?
Yeah, I want to make sure I had the same agenda you did. That's why I was looking at your sheet.
Mm.
At the,
Oh, no. Mm-mm. Did you want me to go over the inventory sheet
did I
first?
skip over? I did change the order. You want to continue the commission members updates? Was that next on the agenda?
That-
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, all right, let's go to that. So that's the Historic Preservation Fund. Will has we had hoped to have a report from him, but he did send me a note. And I will read it to you if I can find it. I think just saying that he did have a meeting with the mayor, and nothing has happened since then that we're aware of.
well, he recommended that that you adopt it. Remember? You look here. Okay, so regarding the draft Bowling Green Community Foundation Fund Agreement, the mayor wrote back to Will. It says, Will, I received an opinion from Mr. Marsh on this matter. Mike feels that the suggested agreement should be fine. In terms of next steps, he suggests that the commission vote to enter into the agreement subject to the approval of city council. Following majority consent from commission members, Mike could draft legislation to place on council's agenda for their consideration. If council approves the agreement, the contract, I think he meant contract, can be finalized and presented to me for my signature as opposed to the commission signing it. Please feel free to follow up with any questions. Thanks.
So we don't have very many details about this, other than what you just read. This was Will's message to me yesterday. You asked about emails conversation I had with the mayor. The only email I received was one I recently sent to the HPC members. At the meeting I had with him, he seemed very interested in the fund, and as you're saying, Heather, I would say that he is for the creation of such a fund contingent on HPC member being also for creating this fund. If it's approved, I will move forward. And this is Will saying this to the mayor, Greater Toledo Community Foundation and BG Community Foundation to get the fund established. Now, it's my understanding that we need to have $10,000 in this in order to open that account. Is that correct?
That's what he
Right.
wrote in the fund agreement.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I mean, often those things are set up so that you have to have an amount like that before you can do any disbursement of interest. But it could be that the foundation in Toledo requires
Uh-huh.
that amount even to set up a fund. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Is that true, Dick? Yeah, okay, well, so we're not anywhere close to that. So.
Unless the mayor is going to propose to council that they dedicate that kind of amount. And we don't know where any of that is at. I do know that there perhaps is a sum of money that has been dedicated to Bowling Green as COVID money that may be in need of being spent. So perhaps there are some possibilities there.
We're in our fall budgeting right now for 2022, so I can check on the status. We haven't had any, department head meetings yet. We've just drafted it, so I can check on that.
I see the mayor
Yeah.
has just arrived. And we keep referring to questions we might have for you. I don't know if you are available to answer it or not.
Answer what I can, when I'm able. Good to
Thank
see you all.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Hi, Chris.
We're discussing the proposal from Will Rodebush for a foundation account.
Yeah.
And he had the impression that you were agreeable or at least favorable in that pursuit.
Favorable of the concept. I think it was last week or the week before, I shared some information that I had received from City Attorney Mike Marsh in terms of process. I don't know if he shared that with you.
No.
So yeah, Mike has given the commission some advice in terms of what that process. I would encourage you to regroup, talk with Will about what that might look like. But yeah, and certainly in concept, I can understand the value of that. From the legal standpoint, there does not appear to be any reason why we could not progress with discussing how that could work.
Terrific. And is it our understanding that we need a certain amount of money in order to open this
I
account?
believe there is a minimum amount required. I'm not sure what that is. For some reason, I want to say 25,000, but I don't quote me on that in any way, shape.
I'm thinking it was 10,000. It was a little
Okay,
bit
that-
less,
yeah,
but
that very well could be.
I'm not clear about that.
Okay.
But what kind of problems does that create?
I guess that depends on your fundraising expertise. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. You
Okay,
know, I've not got involved in the discussion to that level. So I think that that's something that we should,
okay,
probably talk about in greater detail once you've had an opportunity to consume that information that I had shared with Will from City Attorney.
okay, thank you. If we could just go backwards for a moment. And I had sent a message to you about meeting with President Rodney Rogers, which will be on December 1st. Is that a possibility for you to join?
It is. I'm not sure if that date is on my calendar. I wasn't sure if the last communication I had seen the date had been established. But I can tell you that I have, in private conversation with President Rogers, raised the possibility of this arrangement. It was shortly after we had the conversation with the Wood County Commissioners and received a positive response from them. I had shared that process with President Rogers and kind of given him a heads up that this was a conversation that I thought there would be some interest in the commission having with Bowling Green State University as well.
Great.
I also had, based on those conversations, asked City Attorney Marsh to prepare a draft copy of a memo of understanding similar to one that was developed and endorsed by the Wood County Commissioners. I think I shared that with you, the draft copy.
I don't.
Or no, maybe I gave it to you.
I don't have it.
I got
I'm
it.
sure it's very similar to.
Yeah.
Sure, it's very
Well,
similar
yeah,
to
I
the county.
apologize.
But,
Yeah,
but
I
very
apologize.
similar to the,
It's very, very similar
Yeah.
to the one that was approved in concept, subject to review by the city prosecutor, who is the commissioner's legal counsel. And just yesterday, I was told that review is still ongoing. The prosecutor has not returned that information back to the commissioners yet.
Okay.
But yes, it's very similar, Les. It's
Okay.
pretty much, verbatim, just changing the names of the parties involved, I believe. So I apologize for not getting that to you, but I can certainly get that to Heather. We can scan it in and get that over to you via email for that can be a point of discussion on December 3rd with President Rogers.
I did send you a message, maybe it didn't get to your desk on the 13th of October with that date of December 1st at 2:00. So I can send it again with that.
Yeah, please. I don't recall seeing it.
okay.
But if you'll, please.
Be happy
once
to.
Again, I'll make sure that it gets
And
placed on my
if
calendar.
you're available, Will and I will be in attendance as well, and we'd welcome your
Okay.
help
Certainly,
on that.
schedule allows, I'm certainly happy to tag along.
Great, thank you. Okay,
could we also ask about whether the city has moved forward in any way about the possibility of listing the key, the National Register buildings plus possibly the police department building with,
I'm not aware that we had taken any action to facilitate that process. I would have assumed that would be something the commission would facilitate those steps. I think that I've indicated in theory we're certainly supportive of the idea of going through that process with with Needle Hall, with the police division.
right,
And we had talked pretty extensively about the post office.
right.
the facade,
Those
the
three,
facade,
those three
yeah.
things. Right.
facade.
But the first two buildings, Needle Hall and the police office, I see no reason why we would delay. From my perspective or the city's perspective. In terms of the post office, I think that we probably need to consider final design and restoration processes that are being developed for the facade of that building. I would just want to, as I mentioned before, when we talked about this, I would want to be certain that we're communicating with each other about what that process will entail and how that could potentially impact building plans, building processes for the new city building that is going to restore and utilize the facade of that building. So I think that in terms of proceeding with that designation for that facility, I think it would be advisable from my perspective anyways to allow the design to be completed, because as part of that process, we will be identifying what is going to be the scope of work and what methods are going to be utilized to restore the facade of that building. I think that's important information to make part of that discussion.
Okay,
Sounds reasonable.
Do you know what stage that project is in at the moment?
We just a couple of weeks ago had our first meeting for the DD
Okay.
phase of design. We've got another process meeting on that next week, so it's ongoing. Preliminary stages, but
Mhm.
it has started and we're anxious.
good, we are too.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Do we have other questions for the mayor?
I think those are the ones that came
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank
great. Welcome.
Okay, so,
So on that note about the city building, the police building and the Laurel Hall, our process was that we would recommend something to city council for the actual, approval to be on our listed as a local designation. Is that something we're wanting to get the ball rolling on? And is that?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. It might be a good moment to talk about how this all works. I reread our ordinance. Hopefully we all kind of know it. And maybe I can just mention the major steps that we need to take in order to make that happen. We eventually will recommend to council with review from the planning commission, any proposals. So it goes to both of those commissions. We will conduct a written survey. And if it was a private home, we would survey that private home. But I don't know what that word survey means. So I need a little interpretation. In the ordinance, that's the word we used.
I think it's a sort of moot point as in the case of these particular buildings, since they're
But
not.
does that mean like an inventory of those buildings?
No, I think that section, maybe we're talking about two different things, but I think that section was talking about the creation of proposed districts. And there was a requirement of a survey of property owners as to their degree of support for such an
Okay.
action.
Okay.
Isn't that what it was?
Well, yeah, you may be right, because for the individual property, it's initiated by or consent of that property owner, which would, in this case, be the city.
Right.
Then we would have to hold a public hearing. And then after that point, we could make a recommendation of council
Okay, public
it-
hearing first.
and the planning commission.
Okay.
So for those properties, it may not be such a difficult procedure for us.
Okay, I guess we better go back and review that again and make sure, but if so, then if that's a requirement of our ordinance, then we would have to have public hearing, then we could make a recommendation to the city. I mean,
That's how I'm
I
reading it.
think we've just heard the mayor say that they're supportive, so at least for those two buildings.
Right.
At this point, we could go forward.
So
Okay,
if we want to move forward, then we need to be thinking about having a public hearing.
could we have such a hearing in conjunction with a regular meeting of our commission,
Yes,
Heather?
yes.
Well, maybe that would be the way to go.
Are we ready to do it in the next meeting? Is that pushing it a little bit too quickly?
I mean, coming from my perspective, I would think you would want some sort of building inventory, because how are you presenting that to the public at your hearing?
Mhm.
And then how are you presenting it, or how am I as a staff member presenting that to the planning commission? What's significant about it? I mean, I think we know on the surface, but I do think it's a good time to do, have that inventory. And again, it's your local designation. So I think it's important that you have some sort of inventory on the building. That's just my
Mhm.
opinion. Because again, you're going to want to tell people what's significant about these buildings and what's the history. It's a good time to celebrate too, right? The history of
Mhm.
Bowling Green and
Right.
a lot of the roots of the community.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
Chris,
that's- yeah. Okay, so
how do we
So
do
first
it?
step would be the inventory then. And
Right.
second step would be scheduling a public hearing, which maybe we could do as part of a regular session. And okay,
So maybe we need a month to try to do an inventory, maybe
Mhm.
more than that. I don't know how long that might take. And perhaps in 2 months, we could call for that public hearing at our normal meeting time. That would bring us into
we've seen
December.
everything. Sorry.
I'm just saying that would bring us into December, but that's
Right.
okay. We can still do it.
Just to clarify, we've seen everything that was formally written by the National Register, the people proposing the National Register. So we don't have anything for those.
Well, we
Those two
we
buildings?
probably do, because Heather said that the Main Street inventory, we did not, at least I didn't get a copy of that.
I think I've emailed it before,
Mhm.
but I can print you out a copy if you want that.
Yeah.
physical
that-
copy.
That really would be
So
helpful.
maybe
Yep,
we
I
do
can do that.
already have.
At least for the police building, we might have an inventory.
Okay.
For Needle Hall, I don't think we have anything.
Needle Hall is individually listed on the National Register. So there's
There must be
actually,
something then, right?
yeah,
Mhm. Okay.
and there's actually more information on that because it is an individual listing. There's,
Okay.
they went into more depth. The police building is maybe a paragraph or two in
Well,
the
you've
Main
already
Street
seen this.
registry.
Oh, good.
So
Okay, so we might need more.
we might want a little bit more if we that I mean that would lead into the inventory form that I sent out was more of a physical description of the
Mhm.
building. There wasn't anything in there specifically about the just the history of the
History.
building.
There is some in this book, but doesn't go into detail.
Yeah. So I don't, and maybe we'll think about this in terms of we have an inventory for if we're doing a whole district versus an individual building. An individual building, we might want more of the history side of it, as opposed to if we're saying like Boomtown is going to be on our local district, we aren't going to be able to find as much in-depth history on each individual house.
Right.
So that's just something I think we need to consider in terms of what we're going to use the information for, and what, how cumbersome is it going to be for the people involved to find that information.
For the homes, for the residential.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we go about finding more information about the police building?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing's probably going to be our biggest resource is probably our library. And the Historical Society, I'm sure, has information on that particular building. But in general, libraries resources with maps and newspapers and
Okay.
City directories, those sorts of things. That a lot of the commercial buildings, that's how you'll find most of the information.
Chris has developed a much more user-friendly inventory sheet for us. Thank you for doing that,
Sure.
Chris. That's really great. And is that the appropriate inventory form that we would use for these buildings?
So I was approaching this inventory form as if, what information do we want, so that when someone comes in for a COA, we know, okay, here's what you have on the building that's historically important that we want to make sure, either is retained or, we're just being sensitive toward those sorts of things. So that's why that inventory form was all about the physical characteristics of the building. But like I said, we might want to add a section in there just about the history of the building, who used it or why it was built, or those sorts of things that are just remind us why the buildings are important more than just the architectural.
So maybe put a third section in that. I
Right.
think that's a good idea. And we may have nothing for some places, but I think it'd be good to have it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it might be minimal in some cases, and it might be, paragraphs in others. Obviously, like the courthouse, somebody's probably already written a book about it. So
Right, right. Okay. You want to look at her inventory form? You saw this.
Yeah,
Leslie.
are we done with the,
I don't know that we've covered everything here. Workshops, training sessions, Chris,
I'm sorry, are we done on the topic of trying to get an inventory done of
We just need
the
a-
two buildings?
okay, we need a strategy for that, so maybe we should linger on that for a moment. Yes.
I just left a blank here to write something.
Okay,
well, so I think it would be nice if we could at least say, okay, this is the type of information we want. This is the form that we in general might use. Obviously we can tweak it as it gets used and realize it needs to be, but
well,
these buildings could be, the guinea pig for
so
for that
let's say
process.
we use your form. Would you propose that we all individually prepare research? You're you're an expert on this. We're relying on you, Chris.
for the For Needle Hall and
Yeah.
the police building. It might be a nice exercise. I'm not sure if that's a process we're going to, implement long term.
So
I
perhaps
don't know.
at least the three of us, well, we can encourage our other two members to all do our own individual research. We can pool that information and see if we have the appropriate material that we will need. Does that sound good with you?
Yeah, I think it would be nice for us all to understand the process it takes, just so, when someone does want to say someone comes in and says, I want to put my building on the local registry. We understand, each of us understands a little bit of what
Right.
that takes to
Yeah.
get there.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's
So-
a conclusion then to that.
So if we can each do whatever we can in our limited time and then let's share that information if we could before the next meeting. Maybe you could send whatever you are able to find to me and I'll try to put it all together. And we're focusing only on the police building and on the Needle Hall.
And just so you're aware, on the National Register, it's listed as Floral Hall. So when you're
Really?
Googling it.
Okay, we do call it Needle Hall now, don't we? Okay, Floral Hall.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. So moving on quickly here. Workshops, training sessions, we can bypass that for today, but
Can I just make one more comment on B, the inventory sheet?
Yeah.
Just to be more specific, I think it would be really a good thing if we had one additional question somewhere in the form. Maybe John has already said this, but in that case, I'm echoing it. It just asks the owner, the property owner, to give us whatever history
Yeah.
he or she knows about the building.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And I
history
can-
of the building, if known, something like that.
I can add that to the form. I can send that back out.
that'd be
Or-
great.
Or maybe even the building, the construction of and history of the building, if known.
Mhm.
Might be that there's an interesting builder who was involved
Right.
that a property owner would know about. Oh, sorry, I'm
Mhm.
I'm sorry, to whom?
Univ-
oh, the
Archive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Right.
Thank you. Good. All right. We're gonna leave the training session for later. Okay. Did you
Sure,
have
that's fine.
did you have anything that
No,
Mention on it?
I do think it would be nice to have info session about the tax credits. But I haven't had a chance to sit down with Chris Tracy and come up with an exact strategy for all of that yet. So
for the
we're working on it.
for Main Street for the businesses? Yeah.
Yeah, just, and maybe it's a part of a larger discussion about, just general incentives and then we can touch on the historic preservation tax credits, but that's a big incentive usually
Yeah.
for commercial properties,
Yeah,
well, income producing
A-
properties.
And are you prepared to help us understand that?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Shall we add that to the next meeting?
The discussion of the tax credits
Yeah.
or,
Yeah. Are
Um,
you imagining an hour session, 15 minutes? What do you think?
I think it could take over an hour. It might need to be something that as a workshop we provide to the whole community.
Could it be a Zoom meeting? Or better in person?
No, I mean, a lot of it will be it could be a Zoom meeting. Are we allowed to do like workshops that are Zoom? I know we can't do our meetings Zoom, but.
Right, it wouldn't be an official meeting. Yeah, I can double check. I don't see why you couldn't do something educational,
Okay,
sponsored by the HPC, if you want to
Yeah.
put
In
it that
fact, we
way.
want to do that anyway.
yeah.
So if we could do that separate from our meeting, it would be
Mhm.
better probably.
And I did talk with the president of Preserve Toledo. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, the board had decided to not do in-person meetings throughout 2021. She was interested in maybe, in considering doing in-person events in 22. And I would work with her to cater that house history workshop to using Wood County resources. But she wasn't sure on her, winter schedule yet. So that's another workshop, educational workshop that I think would be useful to, get rolling on.
I want to make sure that we're not expecting services from you that you would normally charge for. Is this something that we would normally have to pay for to have a workshop like that?
Preserve Toledo has been putting on these house history workshops in conjunction with Toledo Lucas County Library as a
Service?
as just a education to the
Okay.
community.
And you're comfortable with
Mhm.
with doing that? Okay, thank you. I'm going to move through these quickly, but Les has got something
Sorry.
more to go back to.
This,
I
the
see.
the minutes. I'm back on the Historic Preservation Fund. Not sure we said it. Do we agree we're going to wait until we have Will present and possibly with corrections to the document that he drafted based on his conversation with the mayor, and then we'll decide whether to
I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
adopt
We
it?
didn't decide that. So thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. No, we need Will here. He's the engine behind that proposal. So
And I think he will have to do some redrafting based on a couple of the mayor's suggestions.
Yeah.
Who would disperse the funds, for example. I think it implies the commission would do it, but the mayor clearly thinks it should be the mayor's office. which is
Yeah.
Fine. Okay,
Okay, I'm hesitating. Any other?
I think that's enough.
Things
So
to
I
fill
can
in.
conclude that section with
Okay.
what we're going to do.
Great, thank you. As we start thinking about a community outreach sessions and having a meeting perhaps in a couple months with the community, we need to build more incentives for why we want their support. So I'm hoping that we can collect some more suggestions from this commission. I've listed the protection of our property, property values. Historically, we've seen that the property values go up
Mhm.
in historic districts. Civic pride in our town, our community, and for downtown business tax incentives and loans. So what am I missing?
Oh, gosh. I have to, well, I just want to clarify too, that a lot of, for the federal and state historic preservation tax credit specifically, it's for income producing properties. So that can be residential units with 2 or more units in them,
Oh,
as well as any commercial property that's income producing. So it wouldn't just be, downtown. It could be
so it
a number of
would
other.
pertain to some of the, for example, the Boomtown residences that have multiple
Right,
multiple
multiple units in them.
units. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, good.
One, I know I mentioned this when we were, selling, describing all the incentives to city council last winter, but the National Trust did a study, I think 2 years ago now, might have even been 3, that's, noted that the millennial generation's really interested in living and working in historic communities. So I know that's some of the, some of the interest of economic development in Bowling Green is to draw in some
Yeah.
of those, well, and the university, that we don't want brain drain either. We prefer to keep these people here if they're.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think
No,
of other ones.
I
off the
think
top of
that's a
my head,
really
but-
important issue. And I'm seeing so many of my colleagues at the university deciding to live in Perrysburg
Mhm.
or in Ann Arbor or Toledo. And I hate to see that happen.
Mhm.
Les, any things to add?
I tend to think of this as one part of a much larger
Mhm.
process that we need to be engaged in, which is a kind of public relations campaign to help, hopefully help get the community behind the idea of historic preservation, thus making it easier for us to actually establish one or more historic districts.
Mhm.
So I see this as something part of a bigger thing rather than something that we need right now. That makes any sense.
I'm just projecting when we do have a community engagement event.
Yeah.
We're going to get lots of questions of
Right.
why should I allow you to decide what I can do or can't do? I'm concerned about that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, before we have any such open
Right.
meeting, we would need to be prepared with things like this and
Mhm.
probably a host of other things as
Mhm.
well.
Right.
So, I think it's something we need, absolutely.
Okay, well, if we can all keep thinking about that
Yeah.
and we can add to that list. I still think having an external advisory committee will be valuable. Maybe we should table that for the moment, but I really would like to pursue that and get some input from our other 2 members that aren't here. So I know
I thought it was a good
you and
idea.
I've
Mhm.
talked about that a little bit. That
Could help us.
having experts in different fields that we could rely on. And there's just a lot of work for 5 people. Right now we're 3, so we need help in that way. So I'm gonna push for that, and maybe that can be one of our bigger things that we talk about next time. Okay, let's skip on to the strategic planning of our historic districts and buildings. We've already started that discussion with these 2 buildings. And we talked a little bit about how this process has to go forward. I'm back to that word survey, which
What-
I'm going to assume it means inventory, but I just don't know. You want to see it in the?
Yes, say
in the
what
ordinance?
section of the ordinance?
Okay, let me find it. I have to find my ordinance first. Okay, so for a designation procedure,
Okay. 158.06.
correct.
Okay.
There's a criteria. in considering properties, listed properties in historic districts, and then there's the designation procedure. The initiation recommendations to city council to establish a historic district initiate with the commission and with input from property owners. Written survey, the commission shall conduct a written survey by certified mail of all owners of property within a proposed historic district and include the results of the survey in its written recommendation to city council.
That was the survey of whether they approve or on board or not on board with this
Getting
idea.
a indication of support or not.
Right.
That's
That's
the
way to put
survey.
it. Mhm.
Okay. And it has to be by certified mail. Then the commission will work in good faith to ensure the boundaries of a proposed historic district are drawn so that all properties within the historic district are contiguous. So that would mean we can't have too many non-contributing buildings in the district.
Mhm.
I think there could be maybe one as
No,
we
I
go down
don't,
the
I
block.
don't think it means that exactly, John. It just means you can't create one district that has one building here and three
Right.
over here
Right.
and something over here. I don't think it intended to say anything about the number of
Non-contributing.
contributing
non-
versus non-contributing
Right.
within the district.
Right.
It's just not scattered around.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I agree. Individual property designations, proposals to designate a property that is not otherwise included in the historic district as a listed property will originate with the owner. Upon receipt of the owner's consent to the listing on the local register, the commission may make a recommendation concerning designation to the city council. Then we review this by having a public hearing. There has to be a notice of the hearing. Then we make a recommendation to city council and to planning council, a commission, and then they will make the decision.
I deliberately didn't bring my copy this time.
No.
It was a mistake. I never thought we were going to be looking at this stuff. Okay, so the public hearing is required of of an individual property. Okay, there will be a public hearing. Okay.
Mhm.
Yep. All right.
Okay, I just want to be sure we're clear about how we're going forward. And
So in the case of the city buildings, we will definitely, as we said before, we have to do a public hearing.
right.
So
Okay.
prior, that was the designation procedure. Prior to that, the designation criteria, I think that's more where that inventory form comes in terms of making sure we're meeting these
Meeting.
criteria as we're going to fill this form out.
Good.
Yep.
Okay. So let's look at Chris's map. Are we ready to do that, Chris?
Yes. Is there do I need to join the Zoom to do that, Heather?
I think I can bring it up.
So I don't want to get people all excited, this is the exact boundary or anything. This was my fun Sunday afternoon activity.
Good.
I just want to say this is one of the most exciting things that I've seen in a long, long time. Nobody has dared to think that big before.
Some of the background of the how I got there.
Yeah.
I started looking at just Boomtown and Main Street, and then let's capture this property and this property, and it kind of went like this. And then additionally, what I kind of just gave myself this sort of date of like 1925 might be a good cap for at the moment, just what was significant to what significantly impacted the areas that were Boomtown and Main Street and the university. And then I went property by property and determined whether those that met that criteria of pre-1925 structure. So that's so everything in blue was pre-1925, everything in green is
Okay, so,
post-1925.
so that's all the green means, that it's, didn't meet that particular criteria.
Right.
Okay.
So for instance, I think it kind of jogs around maybe where the Heinz plant was. Because right now, none of those structures are
Mhm.
considered historic, but that doesn't mean maybe we don't have some sort of significance to that site. Not that it needs to meet our ordinance, but it might be a significant,
Mhm.
historic piece of BG that we want to note.
Mhm.
And then I did capture just kind of the university, historic parts of the university, and then the cemetery and City Park, since it was, historically our fairgrounds. And even though there's one building there that's again considered historic, but the grounds itself has history that are
Right.
important.
How did you do this? How did you create this?
It's called Google My Maps.
Okay.
And when I was working on a National Register district, this is how I worked with my team, and it was just seemed pretty user friendly. So I figured it might be something I started to draw on the pieces of paper on my, laid them out on my dining room table, but then I wanted to extend further. I didn't have any paper left, so.
And these are, you have addresses or sorry, you have dates for these structures somehow?
So I was actually looking at a map from 1925.
Oh,
So if that building was on that map, it got a blue dot. If it was not on the map, it got a green dot.
interesting. And each of those dots are buildings or some kind of structure.
That's correct. Each of those dots are buildings.
Okay.
So that is, from my standpoint, in terms of, the process, it was, I started looking, okay, well, what happens if we go extend down Haskins Road? And then when were those neighborhoods built up? And is that, so I was kind of like pushing and pulling that boundary as I was learning more about those areas. And like I said, if for this exercise, it was just the age of the building, of the original building. I'm sure, especially a lot of these houses have had additions or may not be recognizable as their original building.
So
It's-
are you thinking we should, I know the original was 1910 for Boomtown or something like 1915.
Yeah, I think
You
it was
think
something like that.
you're
1912.
suggesting maybe we should be stretching that a little bit into the 20s or even farther?
Well, I mean, I didn't want to go so far as say anything that's 50 years old, or I thought that might be a little too extreme
Yeah,
for right now,
yeah.
but that is anything 50 years or older can qualify for the National Register.
Right,
I don't know if that's the
right.
route we want to take for our local designation.
Uh-huh.
So specific question, on the south, at the south, it extends only as far as, is it Ada? There's
What's
one more
below
street,
that?
there's
Carr.
one more street.
Yeah,
Should we interpret this as meaning that the buildings below that marked boundary are all post 1925 buildings?
That's as far as my map took me.
Oh.
So I haven't gone so far as to look
Okay.
at all the buildings in that area.
Okay,
And then I also do think that some of the numbered streets I don't think they're included, but those structures might be older as well. But yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to look at all of that.
this gentleman. Like to say
Yes,
something, if
Tony.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm. In our last meeting, we talked about maybe, so right now on the National Register, we have the Boomtown District and the Main Street District. That was kind of going to be our starting point for what we're calling the Bowling Green Historic District. Right.
Yeah, just to make it clear, make sure that everybody understands, this is all just exploratory
Right.
conversation at this point. We're trying to decide what might be a good strategy to recommend. This one is a very much more comprehensive one than we've ever talked about before, and I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. The advantage of starting with Boomtown, of course, and Main Street is that we have inventories of those structures and exists. And I think we're wrestling with the concept of, should we expand? Should we just start with that? Do we
Right.
make it smaller? So it's still in the discussion stages.
Mhm. I think if we're, I mean, obviously something at this scale or even something that's, twice the size of Boomtown and Main Street, we'll really want to consider maybe hiring someone through and looking at the CLG grant as a way to hire someone to do all that inventory, because I can't remember how many structures are listed there, but it's like 1,500
It's a-
structures or something. So.
And right now, the Boomtown has 90 structures. Is that right? Or is it more? Is it more?
I
than
want to
that?
say it's a little over 100, but I can't
Over
remember the
100,
exact amount.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But remember, in the National Register, there only 20 something are described.
I think that 13 have special
13.
significance
Yeah.
in that study. That's
Right.
So we could say with reasonable assurance that that map represents the old Bowling Green in some sense. I
Right.
mean, maybe, the margins are unclear because of your map limitations, but
But it's almost 100 years old. And I think
Right.
by the time we
Yeah.
get this all off the ground, it'll be 100 years, right?
Right.
Or pretty close to it. But tell me again where Boomtown is on that.
I should have drawn that boundary, but it does, yeah, it encompasses,
It zigzags. I mean, there's no way
it
to.
does, I know.
yeah.
Show it.
Obviously East Worcester, and then I think it goes down.
It goes down Church.
Church, is that what
goes
it is?
South on Church, a little bit, and then a few, rest of
Yeah.
this map.
Yeah, it's got, this little thing is there. You can see that. That's the Raider Estate, I think.
Yes, yeah,
And then
just past Haskins.
it goes, doesn't go up Haskins exactly. It goes
Mhm.
straight up here for some reason. I don't know why. And then kind of comes along Worcester until it gets to Church and then, no, sorry. Yeah, Church, I guess.
Yeah.
Church,
Right.
yeah.
Right, and then Main Street, I think, catches the other side
Yeah,
of
Main
Church Street.
catches the other
to
side of
Main
that, yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I figured I'll just play and see what it would take to, get something that expansive would be
It
interesting.
stimulated me to think more about something that you had said in an email back a while ago, that maybe we should be thinking about eras, the pioneer era, the boomtown, the oil boom era, the
Right.
industrialization era. I was thinking maybe we should also think in terms of major factors that have influenced the community, like the university,
Mhm.
which was really, until it was growing and changing until the 1950s sometime when it became a state university. And then after that, you know, it's changed in all kinds of ways, but its essential shape has remained the same after about 1950. So 1950 is kind of resonating in my brain. And then the Heinz plant was a big factor in part of the city at one time. The courthouse was an important factor, and what am I forgetting? Other things.
Well,
Well, I guess the oil boom, obviously, and
right,
yeah.
Right.
and the glass, industry, which
Okay, so I'm not sure, but okay, so that's one I don't really know much about.
another big thing.
And so it probably that, looking at it from those perspectives, would overlap pretty well.
Mhm.
The university would have had a major influence on residential housing in much of that area, especially on the
Right.
east side. The Heinz plant probably had a major impact,
Yeah.
especially in the north sections. The glass industry, I don't know, where was that?
Well, wasn't that before the Heinz?
Mhm. Yeah.
Plant? I think it was that
You've
those
looked at that
buildings
book,
and
I
then
have.
Heinz.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What? Really?
Yeah. And there was one
Really?
on, I'd say Ward 1, one in Ward 2.
Uh-huh.
No,
And there's still
there were several.
There was a quarry
Yeah.
that went with
Right.
both of them.
So we could revisit those, your original idea of different historic eras. I don't think we're going to find much in the pioneer days. There is that one cabin that's supposedly in the back of somebody's house. That was the first post office.
Right. Off of North
Yeah,
Main. Mhm.
and there's a
Mhm.
few homes, but scattered around it. So there's not going to be a district.
No,
but
But
Where-
they might be included in
Right.
that larger. That's what's so stimulating about
Mhm.
this, that it includes so much, and it brings obviously difficulties, too, practical difficulties, but I think it's sort of mind opening. And
if we would go with a bigger territory and we wanted to get the grants from the CLG,
Mhm.
what's the deadline on that?
Feb-
I think it was,
Sometime in
yeah,
February.
after the new year. right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
there were a few, seemed to be a few places marked as non-contributing outside of the boundaries.
Yeah. So I
Right.
kind of drew a bigger boundary, and then when I was like, oh, all of this is non-contributing, I'm not. When it got to the point where, blocks and blocks of non-contributing,
So you just
I
made a
just
kind of arbitrary.
rearranged the boundary to cut those out because
But some of the dots are left there outside.
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of jogged around. Is that
Yeah,
what street that is,
Buttonwood.
but
yeah,
Buttonwood,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
when those
Maple.
houses became for
I
businesses.
mean,
and retail.
this is nitpicking.
Now,
But-
what we don't know is what houses have been torn down, right? If you're looking at a map from 1925, I know, for example, on Maple Street, across from my house, there was a structure that was torn down in the 50s and the more modern buildings put up. So
right.
so that may not be telling us that kind of
Everything.
information.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where, if we were, at some point, we'll actually have to go to look at each property and see if this actually it does, is contributing, or if it's either too far altered or, they've torn it down, built something else, then it's non-contributing.
Right. And even if we would just stay with the boomtown, we still need to do that. We would have to find out if, somebody put up a modern looking garage or something that just isn't appropriate for a historical area. So I guess we would be involved in making those visual decisions, right? I mean, I don't know who else would. Just walking the space and I like having this, this survey that Heather gave us last time, because it tells us a lot about the homes and what's there, especially the
then-
old homes.
Yeah, the National Register.
Right.
I mean, we sort of use this term of like does it retain historic integrity? And I don't know if we can quantify that, so that it's easy for people to say, yes, this does, or no, it doesn't.
I'm
Because-
gonna write that down though. I like that.
For instance, my house used to be a larger house. The back portion was removed at some point. But, I would argue the main facade is still intact, so therefore it does have some, historic integrity. But let's say there's a house on, I think Liberty, the same thing happened, but they took half the house and they just moved it like two blocks down. So are they each historically, have historic integrity, or,
That's a good question.
so each property is going to be so unique that I think that's on a case by case basis of, obviously, if it was torn down, in the 80s and rebuilt, then that's an easy one to say, no, there's no historic integrity left. But the house that has the original post office, is there anything where you can say, oh, you can see some of the original shape, therefore it has enough integrity to say it's contributing to the district? And
there
that's,
will have to be
something
a
where
lot
we'll
of
have to.
judgment calls, and we probably
Right.
will need experts to, construction type people to help us understand some issues. But I was just thinking about the street where we live. I would say that our house probably has integrity, probably all of the houses on that street, except one that we always call the Mrs. Rue house, which has been a rental for a long, long, long time, including when Mrs. Rue and her husband lived there. But it's been, they've added porches and they've closed things in. And
Mhm.
so I'm not sure, that the artistic, what's the right? The
The historic
architectural
integrity.
integrity is
Mhm.
left. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I understand
Yeah.
the issue. I think it will be difficult to make decisions in some cases.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Not sure. Where do we want to, I mean, how do we want, I think we keep talking about this idea of what a boundary is. I know at the last meeting was sort of like, well, we'll just maybe look at these two areas, and then I threw a wrench in it by giving you something
No,
different.
and it's okay
but-
to, I think
Mhm.
we should be open-minded about, but it will be more difficult if we start reaching out further in our initial effort. And I guess my thinking was we still were hoping to do Boomtown Main Street as our initial thrust, and then perhaps add to that.
Mhm.
You have any thoughts there, Les?
Um, I'm torn about this, and also I have questions. One question is, and I'm asking now, there's nothing in what we've written, what the ordinance specifies, that would prevent citizens of Boomtown from organizing an effort to get Boomtown listed.
Correct.
And if they proposed it to us, we would deal with it as the, okay, so I think we agree that could happen.
Mhm.
Independent of us largely, I mean, with our assistance, obviously, but the assistance be, in a sense, required. Same thing with Main Street. In the meantime, we're cognizant of the practical realities of that maybe being an easier thing to work on than a larger, but we're also interested in, I think, in trying to design what might be an ideal, defensible, overall historic preservation effort for the city as a whole. And
Well, would it be better
can we do
to,
both at the same time somehow?
or would it be better to start with an even smaller section of town and that being our sample and move out from there? Knowing that what we really would like, but also knowing the problems of making it happen.
Yeah, I think that, if I understood what you're saying, that I think that could happen. A couple of blocks of
Yeah, I mean,
Boomtown.
but if we said Maple Street wanted to be
Yeah, I mean,
historic district,
I don't see why that couldn't happen. And if we did ultimately wind up with a much larger city historic district, those areas could simply be folded in as part of.
but does that
larger
make it
unit.
easier to make this happen? Or I would think so, but maybe not. Means we got to go through this multiple times for maybe several different smaller districts.
A hard question to answer. I think that it would help in the sense that it would be a public relations effort. It would be publicity. And if it were successful, it would be a positive. It would add to our incentive and our abilities to keep moving.
Right, and
forward.
just like doing the police building and Needle
Yes, sir,
Hall,
yeah, like
getting that
running the
started.
individual building.
So let's continue, I guess, discussing a little bit more next time. Maybe we can try to make some kind of a hopeful resolution, but not today. And work on those two buildings that we've already discussed. I'm just trying to find something that we can really all agree on.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us disagree. We just are puzzled about how to proceed.
It seems to me that we're a long way away from saying that we want to endorse something like Chris's proposal, but it certainly gives us an alternative
Yeah.
vision that
Right.
we could sort of work on again in an informal discussing kind of way to see if it could be refined and implemented in ways. And I continue, one last thing, I continue to think that in one sense, all of the public relation efforts that we could possibly imagine maybe should be coming first.
Mhm.
And that would bring the rest of it along a little more easily and naturally, especially if we're talking about larger.
Mhm.
If smaller ones, like the ones you suggested, John, I think those could happen anytime. If you had a group of citizens who wanted to do it, more power to them. I'd love to have a chance to
Yeah.
consider something here as part of the
Mhm.
forward at the council. But I think we ought to continue to strive to come up with
Yeah.
what, sort of an ideal.
I think so too. I mean, we can think big.
Yeah,
We just don't have to do it all at the same time and do it.
All at once.
Today.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we
Right.
can't do it today.
Right. Okay, we're going to wrap up here, our meeting, and then have lobby visitation. Any last comments or pieces of business that we've missed? Okay. Do we have I guess we don't adjourn yet. Let's go
Lobby
on to our
visitation.
lobby visitation, see if we have any discussion from our guests. Well, we think we're on your side. We want you to be on our side too. We all love our downtown and we want to help preserve it. with your help. What might be your concerns for us?
Just for the record, this won't be on the microphone because the microphone's over there.
Oh, okay. Could I ask for your name again, please? Tony Vetter?
What is your business or do you?
Our beautiful flowers. Mhm. Mhm.
Great.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, Downtown BG is kind of the informal name.
Really?
So we hit a lot of topics today. I mean, do you wind up feeling more confused than enlightened, or do you feel enlightened?
I'd rather be on this side of the table. I think possibly you said something.
Mhm.
I will tell you right now, I don't know. Walk down and you want to sign up. It doesn't mean that they're all against it. But tell you that this and you can say those things. They don't jump up the hills. So I think it's a big education.
Mhm.
I would say I would not marry boom campus. I can understand reasons.
No, well, again, at least I'm very proud of our downtown.
Mhm.
And we would like to view ourselves as helping and not being a deterrent to what's going on and what kind of developments that we might want to make. So we need your help to tell us what we can do. But it may require some restrictions for those business owners. And that's going to be the problem, right? You don't want to have anybody telling you what kind of sign you can put up. So,
Right.
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And anytime you want us to come and talk with you and with the organization, we'd be happy to do it. Les would be happy to go, and Chris would. No, we want to make some presentations and be visible.
Mhm.
And again, we're viewing the way we wrote our ordinance was to be friendly to
Friendly.
the environment and to our city and
Mhm.
not try to be too restrictive. We don't imagine we're going to be Charleston or Savannah or,
Right.
some wonderful historic city like that with huge restrictions.
Huge- Right.
That's right.
I just want to piggyback on what John was saying about, I'll say I, because definitely can't speak for everybody, but I think we have similar sentiments that, I'm on this commission because I care about these, BG's history. And I am, again, really proud of, what we have and how people are taking care of it. In fact, when I visited before I moved here, I was really impressed with what was standing and how it was taken care of for a town that didn't have any, commission. It was impressive to me that people cared enough to take care of what was here. So I think that's, we're just trying to celebrate that and make sure they continue to stay for the next generations. So,
Right.
yeah, however we can help people understand our process and what kind of, we're here to be a resource. And I think to Les's point, education is going to be really important for a long while.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, and there's no time to be engaging in any arguments or anything here, and it's not appropriate, but I just maybe would say this, that I don't know how closely you've looked at the ordinance, how much you were involved when it was passed, but I think if you look at it carefully, what you'll discover is that it probably doesn't require downtown property owners to do any particular thing. So the objections maybe, I'm just guessing now, maybe more to the idea that there might be restrictions on what a property owner can do rather than or that there shouldn't be concern about the ordinance actually requiring anybody to do something.
It's
It's mostly that.
That's
I think.
pretty minimal.
Just for what
Just
it's worth,
maintenance.
wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that we will definitely want to emphasize as we
Yeah.
continue to educate, do these workshops, those sorts of
And I
things.
think there are buildings downtown that we absolutely want to help survive. The Clazel is part of our, I've been here for 45 years and I love having that, even though it's not a theater anymore. The diner, I wish we could get that open again. I know that's got other problems which may never be solved, but there's some wonderful buildings and we want to see them thrive.
Mhm.
And we shop in Bowling Green as much as we can. We want to
Mhm.
keep doing that, and we want our friends to also support you.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Glad you came. I mean, maybe our first chance to get a little direct feedback from members of the community.
Okay, with that, we are at 5:30 and it's time to adjourn. Can I have a motion?
Do we need to set our next meeting or can that happen outside of?
Yes, we
this?
do. And I'm looking at November 23rd. That's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Thank you. Is that okay for you?
I will not be able to be here for that meeting. We have it on that day. We're hosting the BG hockey team early Thanksgiving dinner because they're leaving for a game or something on Thanksgiving, and so I just will not be able.
Okay, so shall we?
But
we
that
need-
doesn't mean you can't have a meeting.
I
But
think
somebody
I-
else will have to be
I think we
secretary.
need you there. We made this particular meeting time for Christina. Tracy and.
Yeah,
helped
fourth-
very much.
and-
fourth,
And she
Tuesday.
is not here. So if we need to change, I'm fine with that. Can we consider?
We
some
can
other-
look. I caution you, all this moving constantly is really hard to be a
Mhm.
public body and always changing times and days. And I'm not trying to discourage that, but it's just hard for us to keep up and then the public to keep up. So I just would encourage at some point we continue the regular meeting times. Because then we got to change our website. Then we got, it's just a
Yeah.
lot of things we need to change anytime we do kind of an irregular meeting schedule. So just want to throw it out there. So I can look at whatever you need me to look at. It's just some cautionary tale there.
So are you the fourth Tuesday?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 4
So,
o'clock.
Just looking ahead, that's December 28th.
Yeah.
So I totally understand Heather, what you're saying, but to do a combined November and December, just
Um,
get away from all of the holidays. Just a lot of boards I'm on have the same struggle.
Yeah, yeah.
End up picking one and kind of throwing their hands up for the, because it's too hard.
Okay, do we have calendars here? Can we look real fast?
Except for Heather's point, which I think is an important one, probably the most practical thing would be to have, say, an early December meeting that would cover both months.
Um, I would,
But that's the problem, of shifting things around.
I think our regular time needs to be settled, and I think it is settled, and I'd like to keep it at Tuesday at 4 o'clock, but with that in mind, I think we need to do a meeting when you can be here and Chris can be here and Will, and who knows, if Christina can come. But I would suggest we try to change it if we can. Okay?
I don't think that I'm indispensable. I mean, somebody else can take notes.
Well, none of us are indispensable. Do you have a thought on that before we?
No,
look?
I did want to, I was also thinking about the December meeting earlier today when I was looking at the calendar. I didn't consider combining them, though. I think that might be a nice solution.
Well, I'm almost for sure we'll be gone in
Yes,
December
say
on
the-
that date. So I think that we will not be able to keep that one.
Yeah, I think too many of us are going to be doing other things between Christmas and New Year. So
If we were to look at November 16th, that's a Tuesday. At 4 o'clock. I have a dentist appointment at 2 o'clock and I'm getting a new crown, so I'm not going to be in great shape.
you said, I'm sorry, you
But
said
I could
November?
I could come.
Is that better for you than the 9th or
The 9th is close, though. I mean, don't you think? That's what, only 2 weeks away?
no, you're right. I guess that's a good. No, I was thinking of December. Sorry.
Mhm.
I was,
Oh, December 9th?
Seventh
The
or
se- the
fourth-
seventh would be
or
a-
the 14th.
Mhm.
The 7th is a Tuesday. Yeah. We could do that?
Pearl Harbor's Remembrance
Yeah.
Day.
yeah.
If we, and then we'd be combining our November and December
Yeah,
meetings,
yeah.
just do one for the rest of the year. Yeah.
What do you think, Heather?
I'll have to double check the council chamber. I don't have access to that calendar, but
Well,
I can check.
No, well, we usually have the 4 o'clock time on Tuesdays, though, right?
On
The fourth Tuesday, right?
Oh, that's
Mhm.
true.
Yeah.
I see. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we'll compromise with Heather and we'll keep Tuesdays, but maybe not the 4th Tuesday, if we can.
Um, But after the holidays, we will go back to our normal meeting time, right?
Yes, I'd like to.
Yeah, I would like to as well.
And in addition, I think we need to communicate by email and try to move forward, especially if we're not going to be meeting for another 6 weeks
Mhm.
on these two buildings. Is that okay, Les, if we all
I
do a
think
little
we
bit of work?
can, we can,
As much as we
we can
can.
give information to each
Yeah.
other
Right,
freely, right? You
right.
just can't make any,
We're not
Decisions.
meeting.
Right, right.
Okay, Heather, we'll wait to hear. If
Yep,
that-
I'll
that-
get back to,
If
mhm.
that date works.
Yep.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
we'll move.
Second,
Second.
okay.